Hello, my name is Jay Sean Darrow, and my video essay is about the Second Amendment and the rights to bear arms. I believe that we should change the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms, because over the years, we as a society have seen the effects of what happens when people who own guns are not safe or considerate with the firearm that they have around them. An example of this is the ninth grader in Utah. From the ABC 4 News website or article, it states that a ninth grader went on a field trip and inflicted damage to himself using a firearm in front of his classmates and the faculty, which is not okay at all. A ninth grader should not be in reach of a firearm or in possession of one at all. I mean, and being a ninth grader, that age ranges from 14 and 15. So a 15-year-old having access to something like that is why we should change or update the Second Amendment to reflect the times that we're in. Another example is the Charlie Kirk situation. Charlie Kirk was in a public setting at the Utah Valley University, which is not too far from the high school where the ninth grader shot himself. And it goes to show that not only that guns is a state issue, but also a worldwide issue as well, because these things are happening all over and not just in Utah. Also, Charlie Kirk is another good example because politicians, however people view politics, there should be a light bulb going off in people's head that, politics are causing people to have different opinions, which leading people to inflict damage onto others, which is why we should have more regulated control over firearms, which goes back to my point of updating or changing the Second Amendment to reflect the times that we're in, not to take away people's ownerships of their firearms, but to enforce more safety with it. From this article, the National Library of Medicine, it states that Black people are disproportionately represented in firearm homicides, which would benefit most from gun control, which is true because most poverty or poor communities do in fact face a lot of gun violence, and those are communities that would benefit from changes and from more controlled regulations with guns. It also states in this article that white people are more likely to own their guns and resist gun reforms. However, they are also most likely to commit suicide with the firearms, which goes to show that in these communities, we do have gun control, but it only affects certain people and not all, which now brings up my point on why or what we should change. Now, the Second Amendment, like I said, should be changed to reflect the times we're living in and the society where we're frequently reading in the news about public shootings and school shootings. So my plan would be would be called the Safe Militia Requirement. I would call it that. It would be a law in place ensuring that gun owners take gun safety into consideration at all times, to limit all people with questionable backgrounds from owning guns, so having a universal background check, but most importantly, to have a safety requirement. So if you're going to purchase a gun or a firearm, you have to have a storage safety compartment for it at all times, locked. And I feel like this would benefit everyone, where people won't feel like their Second Amendment is being infringed upon. But however, there's also a middle ground where people can start practicing safety, so we could limit and decrease the gun violence that is happening in this country. Now, I believe that pushback will come from people of the older generation, ages 40 and up, because the generation that push for resisting against gun reforms and stuff like that. But however, my generation, people who are a bit older, in their 30s more so, really are behind reforming the policies in the Second Amendment, because it not only affects, like I said, the masses, but the small communities as well, the poor, impoverished community as well. Now, there are some changes that us young people can push for and do, like voting for leaders who push for gun reforms, or taking to social media and spreading awareness, which can then reach Congress and government and become a worldwide thing. But I do believe that the Second Amendment should be changed or reformed to not only reflect the times that we're living in, but to also push for more gun safety, which is the main important thing.